Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Keeping It Real with America's Supermom. I'm excited about my next guest, Ravit. We are actually a part of the same team referral network. And so we belong to the same chapter. I'm really happy to have her here today because it's all about making connections and deeper connections. So before we get into some of those different topics, I want to give her the opportunity to introduce herself.
Thank you, Lachelle. Thank you for having me on. My name is Ravit Lonstein, and my company name is rlfinancialguru.com. And we help people with anything to do with financial, making extra income, and also whatever they may need, from basically all aspects of it. So
I love that. And that's an appropriate topic around this time because so many people, their incomes have changed, their industry of work. So, what are some things that you would first advise someone who is in somewhat of a bad financial situation to kind of start doing in order to work on creating a new foundation or rebuilding from where they're at?
okay, well, the first thing it's like obviously it depends on an individual basis, but first
Mhm.
of all, people when they meet with us, we basically work on okay, what exactly they need, if they need to generate extra income, or they might be drowning in debt, and not know what to do about that, or there could be many other aspects to that. But I think that all of us kind of, even though I'm in the same field, and I've basically been taught to save, right? Since I
Mm.
basically started with this company, which I'm so blessed, because, most people don't do that. And then, you see, this particular pandemic going on, and you're like, wow, people like really panic because, they're not covered with insurance, like they're not
Mhm.
protected, right? Or, or they haven't even started saving, and their kids are getting to college age, and they're starting to think like, oh wow, we haven't done that, right? Or they, or like they have their money in the stock market and it's going up and down and there's no guarantees, so people lose a lot of money. We've had this one lady that, she's 74 years old. She's been saving for the last 44 years. She was a teacher, and she lost like close to $100,000 in literally 3 months.
Wow. Oh my goodness. So,
So
I think we tie so much of our confidence, our worth and value into our income or items that we own. So what are some things that we really should be um thinking about in order for us to kind of get past that to begin to start, a new pathway, so to speak, or a new foundation when it comes to, like you said, saving or looking at things from a different mindset so that we can accomplish some of our financial goals.
okay, well, first of all, the other thing is a lot of times we're not aware of the
Mm.
expenses other than what we're actually, obviously it's not the mortgage or the car payment or whatever. It's, in the US it's a Starbucks, or it's
Mm.
or whatever that is, or it's Amazon, right? And a lot of times we think we're like, yeah, we're making this much. This is how much is coming out. We have this much, extra, right? Most
Mm.
people think that way, right? But when we actually sit down with them and we really work on all that stuff, and they're like, wow, we're actually paycheck to paycheck, right? So a lot of times we find that it's the quick stop to the gas station, that paying for cash every day for all these little snacks that add up, or you know
Mm.
um or like the small stuff that you buy that you don't think about, and then at the end of the month you're like, wow, yeah, I bought 2 or 3 of those, and then here I am, right? So it's putting
Mhm.
in the habit, but also finding exactly the source of where the money's going, and how, and basically how to allocate it and make it build wealth for whatever the purpose is for the future. So if it's
Mm.
retirement or college education, or even when they pay off the debt, we set up an emergency fund so they don't go back into borrowing again. And a lot of times it
Mm.
could just be a little tweak in what they're paying, or, what they should be paying first and at what order. And then, they could actually get quicker into getting out of that much quicker than, if they did it by themselves. So it's just a
I
matter of just kind of educating what they're doing and helping them there.
Yeah, I love that. And, I love what you mentioned about the little expenses where how they seem little, but they end up to do some big damage down the road. So, one of the things that kind of brings to mind is many people who have the mindset of kind of rebelling against a budget. So talk to us about a way that we can begin to map out or a spending plan or whatever we want to call it and why it's important for us.
Well, first of all, I think most people, like, when we're kids, we're like used to dreaming, right? We
Mhm.
have goals and we have like inspirations, and we've got like whatever. We know what we a lot of us know what we want to do when we grow up. And so we're kind of like in this, like, in a sense of like, okay, good, I know what I want to be and I have my goals are very clear, right? And over the
Mhm.
course of like us, over the years, a lot of times that goal gets kind of trampled. So when we start revitalizing the goal and finding out exactly where they want to go, let's say they want to travel, let's say they want to buy a house, let's say they need a certain amount for retirement, or if it's, getting kids through college, that purpose kind of like comes back again. And once you revitalize that goal, then there's another purpose to really put it in, because if they really want to get to that goal, they're going to have to make some changes. So
Mhm.
we basically sit with them step by step and figure out, okay, this much is going to go here, this one's going to go there. Every month you should have this amount, and where it's going to be like, okay, good. So this amount's going to come out of your account. It's almost like a mandatory thing versus I have to think about taking out $100 every month, and then what happens if I get there and it's not there, right? Because you spend it on
Mm.
whatever. So it's making it into a habit where you have to do it. And then you see the results, and you see, let's say, the money building, or you see that you're one step closer to where you want to go, but it's like baby steps. You know,
Mhm.
we don't expect people to, like an infant, he doesn't just like, they don't just get up and walk, right? They start like step by step, and we're basically there, kind of like the parent holding the hand and encouraging them along the way until they feel, and of course it's like anybody, like going to a gym, right? They start out at, the first exercise, it's painful, it hurts, you're not going to be having all this muscle build like right off the bat. So
Mhm.
it's the same thing. It's like just the habit of saving and kind of moving it and directing it toward the goal. That is, it's kind of like it's baby steps, and eventually, in the beginning it's like, I'm doing this, but then eventually it's like, oh wow, yay, I saved this and I have this much and I'm closer, and and it becomes a habit, and they don't think about that anymore, where
Mm.
before it's, yeah, it's like a disciplined kind of thing.
I love that. And I'm what I'm envisioning as you're talking is, possibly getting a designated amount for like coffee purchases or whatever. And so you have that in cash, and when it's gone, it's gone. So you specifically think ahead of time how much you want to spend on whatever that is. And when you're done, that's it. So that you can kind of begin to see how much money you had been spending, or, you can gauge that and kind of have some realistic expectations on what that's going to look like in the long run.
Yeah, exactly. And like all of us, I mean, we're a creature of like, we need some kind of like pleasure moment, right? And for us it's
Mhm.
like a coffee, or
Mhm.
it's just like, or it's, I don't know, to go through a store and buy ourselves some soap. I don't know, I'm just saying, different people have their things. Some people like perfume, or some people like to just buy a lipstick every so often. All I'm saying
Mhm.
is you got to have that an allocated budget. And the other thing is, you put it already into the expenses as if you need that every month, as I mean,
Mm.
we're women, I mean, we, some love to do their nails, some love to do a hair, get a haircut or whatever, and Same thing with men, right? So on those things,
Mhm.
it's almost like some certain things are mandatory to some degree, because if you don't do that, it's kind of part of your own personality, and you feel like, oh my gosh, I
Mhm.
look bad, so the self-image goes down and all that. So it's important to also allocate specific amount for like the really needed stuff, and then the other stuff, obviously a coffee here and there, it's no big deal. But when you're dealing with, some people have a habit, literally they go in and they're spending between $7 and $10 a day just on coffee and other things. You know what I'm saying? When at the end of the month, you're like, wow, that could be a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
So
And one of the things that even comes to mind when you're saying that is that a lot of times, and I can only speak for myself, in the past when it came to money, it really was not really having a conscious decision about things, like you're doing things out of habit. But when you decide to take authority or control over your finances, you recognize that if you buy something, then you're giving up something else, or that money can't go somewhere else. Like you're making a decision, even though it seems like you're not. So like, for example, one of the things that I do in my business now, it's like I don't create another expense until I have the income to support that. So my business is totally different now than how it would have been in the past, because I would have been trying to buy what everybody else had. And then when something changed or I needed to make another purchase because hence a global pandemic and you got to have Zoom and all these other electronic things, I would be stuck and couldn't navigate through that because I'd have too many bills. Whereas now it's like, you know what? I just don't have peace having all these things that I have to allocate for, and not knowing if they really are valuable enough to support the need that I have for my business.
that's very smart. Yeah,
Mhm.
because most people, they like overextend themselves. They'll like will buy what everybody else has, but at the other
Mhm.
day, or they won't have much money, and they end up going to lease a car that they could barely even pay for every month, and they're already like stressed out, right?
Yeah,
So, but I think
been
the
there, done that.
awareness, so you're already like the 1%, seriously, because
Hey,
yeah,
learn
that's awesome.
learn the hard way, okay? So
Yes,
let's not definitely make it bigger than what it is, okay?
exactly. No, that's amazing. That's great. You're
So,
awesome.
for people who are just starting out, and they want to take those baby steps, because a lot of times it's like, you know what, I want to get my finances in order. So we start out with the biggest goal we can have, and it's unrealistic, and then we fall off. So, what are some practical things that we should kind of start doing as we're taking those baby steps?
Okay, well, I think the first thing is to, the main thing is, first of all, to figure out, and we can help them with that. We don't charge for the financial plan too when we sit down with people, so we can help them as well. Like, we basically find out the expenses. We do like a whole holistic like overview, and what exactly, where's the money going, how much you have, what's the scenario, and what do you have in place already.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of
Mm-hmm.
times that specific part is not, maybe it's not building them wealth, maybe they're paying way too much taxes on it, that they, obviously it has to be legal and ethical and all that, but I'm just saying it just depends on the scenario. But the first thing is to bring up the consciousness and awareness that this is what the scenario really is, not
Mm-hmm.
always what they think that it is. So
I love that.
once they realize that, let's say they have that Starbucks thing every day, or
Mhm.
whatever, the Amazon boxes keep coming in, and you know what I'm saying, whatever that is, because now obviously it's convenient, everything's online, right? So
Right.
so you're like, yeah, I need this, I need that, blah blah blah. Suddenly, you're like, yeah, no big deal, or I'll put it on the card, or whatever the thing is, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you realize really on paper what it really looks like, even if it's painful, even if whatever, but that's like the first step.
Mm-hmm.
Then once you see that, then they really see what it's really looking, and then it's almost like they're aware of it, so now they can't ignore it even though if it's painful. So then they
Mm.
basically start like either cutting back, and then and start to save, or put places where it actually builds. A lot of times also, the banks are great in terms of just opening an account, but they're not really there for building wealth. They really love, they love to take our money and then invest it and make money from that, right? Obviously. So
Mhm.
it's not really, so there's many other ways to build wealth. So when we even meet with people and we educate them on just simple concepts, right? A lot of times they'll see, wow, my money has been sitting there for who knows how long and it's not making any money. And not to mention that the amount of money that they make, which is barely anything anyway, they have to pay taxes on and
Mhm.
fees, right? Bank fees or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So when you look at that, and you look at that and you say, oh wow, okay, good. So these are the different options that you can get this amount of money or this percentage or whatever's right for them and whatever the purpose is for what they want to do with it. Then they're
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, I should have done this like years ago because in the last whatever 10, 15 years, or I put it in a CD or something like that or whatever. And they're like, this is a joke. It's true.
Mhm.
So they basically just like move. It's almost like sometimes they just move what they're doing. Or I tell them, listen, if you have a credit card that's really high interest, find out how much interest rate is on the credit card. A lot of times they don't know.
Mm.
So they think it's like 0%, maybe 0% it's only 0% for 6 months. Then it climbed to 15%. The next thing you know, it's at 25% or 30%, and they're just revolving just to pay the credit, the amount of interest.
Mhm. Mhm.
So when I tell them, listen, you have to move this amount, you have to go to 0%, find out how long you have, you move it from one to the other, they're already saved a ton of money just in interest, you
I
know?
see. Mhm.
So it's just a matter of the education, and it's just a matter of like just talking to them and seeing how we can help, because there's always a way. There's always
That
something.
so positive. I love that. So, what was it that really got you on this path where you're at now?
It's funny. I had such a detour. I've always loved helping people. So I've always wanted to
Mhm.
be a doctor. I did my pre-med and all that, and then I went into alternative medicine, and then I had my kids. And I also did nursing before. So I was like always into the healthcare field and all that. And then, crazy enough, we had an advisor that we basically sold everything and moved out of the country. We went to live in Israel,
Mhm.
and we had a house. We sold everything, and he looked really legit on paper, whatever. We moved to Israel, and I'm pregnant with my first child. And we find out that there's no money left at all, like no money, like savings, nothing. And I'm pregnant with my son, and I'm like freak. I mean, he and my husband, I didn't know what was going on, because he looked like he was like not doing well, and he was trying to hide it from me because he didn't want me to go to like early labor, right? So
Mhm.
I'm like, what's going on? And he goes, everything we basically saved on is no longer there. And I'm like, what are you talking about, right? Like everything, right? And we've been working, I mean, all of us literally, I mean, I've been working since I was like 16 years old. It's not like, So basically, fast forward, I have my son. We have to move. We moved back to Los Angeles to be with my family. Thank God for the family. I'm telling you, they took us in. But I just never wanted to be in a situation ever again. I said, I have to take control of the money. I have to be more knowledgeable when it comes to that. I never, ever want to do that. I never want to have to start from scratch again, you know?
Wow.
And then literally with my little boy, he was an infant at the time. That's what exactly around the time of like 9/11, when this whole thing went down.
Mhm.
Um, so I started in real estate. I was part of like trying to make extra money, because we basically all both of us basically had to start from scratch, right? So
Mhm.
and then I said to myself, you know what? I'm working so hard. I went through like the 2008 market crash. I worked literally 2 years on this house for like nothing. And then at the end, the bank decided it's going to do a trustee sale and sell the house, but didn't even bother to tell us. We basically been working on this for like 2 years. One realtor called me to ask me something about the square foot or something like that. And he goes, oh, by the way, I don't know if you know this, but we're literally selling the house right now on the steps. And I was like, what are you talking about? So I basically worked through literally all my kids. I did, I was burnt out. And, the chances of like I love houses. I love to be just, more of an investor kind of thing because I just love the aesthetics of it. But I worked so hard. And then at the end, the broker took a big chunk. And I just said to myself, I have to find something that I love to help people that will impact their life and really, really make their situation so much better. But also at the same time, get like residual income and get like multiple streams of income that I know that I don't have to work so hard. That if I work, I'm like their person for life, and I don't have to now go look for another house and another buyer and another thing. You know what I'm saying? And it's just it's been like, and I'm really really I'm so blessed to be in this industry because we can help everybody, and that's the difference between us and everybody else. We love to help everyone, anyone,
Mhm.
companies, single mom saving $40. Like we are like basically don't leave anyone behind, and that's
I
the
love
thing.
that.
And I just
Yeah.
love that. It just so yeah, and it's funny. And my husband's a friend from childhood friend has been doing this for like 11 years. And
Mhm.
he said to me, oh, come on over, come see. They had an open house kind of thing. And they said, oh, come on over, see what we do. So I walk in, I'm like, oh my God, this is so amazing. This is what I've been looking for, and it just kind of fell in my lap. But yeah, and I just love to help people. It's like
That
one of
is
my
awesome.
passions.
Yeah, now, so, I love that your story, and I wanna thank you for sharing that with us because, there's a lot of people that has happened to, and some of them got no warning or anything, such as yourself. So, my question is, how do you go from that experience to learning to trust people now? What are some boundaries or something that you would advise us to kinda have in place to prevent something like that from happening? Maybe it might not be money, but just like someone betrays you or whatever the situation is, how you can continue to have faith and trust in people.
Yeah, I think the first thing is you remember what it was at the time. So you already know you don't want to go back to that situation.
Mhm.
Secondly, with money, obviously, I used to let my husband do everything. Oh, I do the budgeting, do this, I was taking care of the kids, and I was like, this is not my area. I don't know anything about it. First thing is take control of your own financial thing. And it doesn't matter how uncomfortable it is, it doesn't matter how painful it is. And if you don't really know much about it, that's the point. That's the point of get some education, get some
Mm.
financial literacy. We have these amazing classes. Jump on the classes. It teaches you so much. It's like education that should have been taught in school.
Mhm.
So it's one of those things where you have to just take the step, because the thing is, if you want it not to happen to you, you have to be in control.
Mhm.
And the thing is this, so if you kind of know what you're looking for, and the thing is this, if you have to go with somebody first of all that's backed, that has a track record, that is backed
Mhm.
up by really really big companies, not just little tiny companies, because you don't know how long they're going to be in business. You don't know.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would ask for referrals, but usually the way we work is by word of mouth. It's
Mhm.
usually by somebody that was with us, and they were all our clients are extremely happy, so they usually refer other people to us, and then we'll get like maybe like so many different, like the person can refer to another person to go another person to another person. Sometimes you get like a referral from like fifth or sixth in, like some other person that literally got our number from somebody else that's like, that used to even do the business, and or used to just not just be a client, which is amazing. So I think trust is the number one thing that is the most
Mhm.
important, and you have to really feel comfortable. And I spoke to so many people that they were taken advantage of, and they said, look, I don't want to be in stocks and bonds, and then somebody else checks their portfolio and said, oh my God, you're totally in high risk, everything here is
Mm.
not, you know what I'm saying, because they just
Mhm.
decided that it's good for them, and they don't listen to the client. So
Mm.
you have to just like ask a lot of questions. You got to do your homework. And the thing with us is, we never have them write our name on the check. It's always the provider, it's always the company. You know what I'm saying? And that's the fishy part. When you have to write, if you have to write their name on the check, something's weird. You know.
Mm.
So that's the
Mhm.
first thing, and I think you have to just be really aware and just see if it's really for real. Check out the company, check out what they're showing you, see if that's actually legit. I'm sure there's a phone number, call and see if it's actually real. You know what I mean? These kind of things, and I would definitely use referrals, and I would just check the person out and just ask them for referrals. And there shouldn't be anybody that I even have my clients, if they're always open, if anybody needs to contact them for something, they're always like, yeah, sure, no
Mhm,
problem, you know.
mhm.
But with
Love
that,
that.
that's it's one of those things that it's yeah, it's great, and it's great, especially when a friend says, "Oh, Coravit," they're like,
Mm,
oh yeah, she'll take good care of you, you know what I mean? They don't have
mhm.
to worry about it. It's just cool.
I love that. And, those are some good points because so many of us, it's like you don't really know good your finances well. You want to improve them, but then you're so busy trying to pretend that you know what you're doing. So you're looking online, you're getting overwhelmed, you're not doing anything, you're still in the same cycle. So I appreciate all that insight because, it takes a village. That's one of the things I remind people is that, if you recognize that something's not working, that means you need help. Okay, it's just simple, but sometimes we are afraid to admit, what we need help in. So, what is the best way for the audience to get a hold of you?
They could go on my website. It's RL Financial Guru. It's GURU.com or rlfinancialguru@gmail.com. Or they can even call me. It's my number is 818-231-9251. So whatever way, it's awesome.
Uh, and then, what final words would you like to leave the audience with today?
I think that anything you do that will be toward where you want to go, or anything you realize that you need to change, is already a step in the right direction.
Mhm,
So it doesn't have to be a big step. It could be a small step. It could be like, oh, okay, if I'm spending this much per week going, eating out, and I have a budget, I have a tight budget. It's okay, good. So let's go maybe 3 times a week, not five. Or, you know what I mean? Or just if you
mhm,
make a little bit of a change, or if
mhm,
you just change something small,
mhm.
it makes a big difference. It
I
it goes.
love that. I love that. And I always remind people that if you take small steps, you can easily make changes and corrections without a lot of problems down the road. And you're able to be consistent with it if it's small enough where you have the bandwidth to keep doing it. So, great advice. So, I would encourage all of you all who are watching with us today to reach out to Ravit. This topic of financial literacy is so important. And as she said, we're not taught this in school, so we're not supposed to be experts. So it's important to reach out to someone that you feel that you can trust and begin to get a handle on your finances. So if what Ravit said resonated with you, I challenge you to give her a call because if you keep on waiting for this person or that person, you're never going to change. So, if you have any questions and maybe you still are a little uncomfortable about reaching out, please feel free to put them in the comments and we will make sure that we get them answered for you. So, Ravit, we want to thank you again for sharing your insights and wisdom around finances. I know sometimes this is a topic that a lot of people want to get a lot of money, but then they don't want to hear the theory behind the things that we have to practice in order to begin to accumulate that money and wealth. So, thank you so much for diving into this topic and giving us some insight that's really easy for us to implement.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, we want to thank you guys all for watching. And again, I say reach out to Ravit. And if something in this conversation really sparked a chord with you, share it with somebody. It doesn't cost anything to share. And it is so life altering and changing sometimes when people hear the simplest things related to certain areas of their life. And finances usually is a big one. So we want to thank you all for watching, and we will see you on the next episode. Have a great evening. Bye for now.